Today I'm bringing you something a little bit different, something new to this channel. By popular demand, I am bringing to you camera tutorials. So we're going to go behind the camera this time and show you the ins and outs on how to take really good pictures. Whether you want to do this as a hobby or go into it for yourself as a business. Since this is the first video of the series, I wanted to outline my intentions. So in future videos, we are going to go through each individual manual setting of a DSLR camera. We're going to go through Lightroom editing, Photoshop editing, 7 steps to taking an awesome picture, and also I'll probably include some videos of behind the scenes. So where I'm actually at a shoot and I'll be talking through the settings that I use to create those specific images. So before we get started, let's ask the question, what is a DSLR camera? One of these. DSLR stands for Digital Single Lens Reflex. So basically it combines the optics and mechanisms of an SLR, which is the same kind of camera apart from using film, but DSLR is obviously using the digital aspect of things. So when talking about the settings of a DSLR camera, I'm going to be talking about a 5D Mark III. That's just because that is the camera that I use. I have used this camera probably for the last 6 or 7 years, and I've been a Canon user for, I can't even remember, a long time. My mom and dad actually gifted me a Canon camera, and that's pretty much why I went with Canon and not Nikon, which is the competitor of Canon. Honestly, it is a matter of preference, I think. I've never really looked into Nikon just because I have Canon and I love it. I'm happy with it and I have no intention of changing anything, because, you know, once you've got the Canon camera and the Canon lenses and all that jazz, it's not financially beneficial to start switching things around. So it doesn't matter whether you are a Nikon user or maybe your Canon camera is a different model. It's all going to be pretty much the same thing. Your buttons may just be in a different area on the camera. But if you have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to ask below in comments and I will be happy to answer those. Alternatively, you could just consult your manual that came with your camera. I want to start off by just going through the different settings and buttons on the camera, and then obviously in future videos we will go into more depth of what they do and how we achieve a certain look by using those settings. We'll start with the on button right here. Switch it on. We have a dial here and you have to press the button to move it. As you can see, mine is on the manual mode and it's in line with this little white line here. That's how we know it's on manual. And I'm going to be keeping it on manual for the whole tutorial and tutorials to come. That's just how I shoot and that's how I want to teach you. You can manipulate the settings to create a much better image than if it was on an auto setting. An auto setting is basically you have no control over any of the lighting or the settings in general. The camera itself predicts what you need it to do, and I've just found that it's not the best outcome. So that's why I like to use manual, so that I can set the settings to my liking. So then we have this little thing on top, it's called a hot shoe or hot plate, I think. And this is basically where you would put like an external flash that you can click on. As you can see, this camera doesn't actually have a built-in flash. If you have like a Canon Rebel or anything like that, yours probably will have like a pop-up flash. We will do a video about that as to why I do not recommend that you use that flash and that you put one on top. Even better, have your flash off the camera. Again, totally another story there. Obviously, if you are using your light off of the camera, you would need a trigger receiver to click on here so that they talk to each other. Also, if you are going to use the camera for video, you may want to put a microphone on there. So that is what that is for. So then we come over to this little dial right here next to what's called the viewfinder. The viewfinder is what you look through. So a point and shoot kind of camera or a video camera, obviously you can see what's going on at the back of the screen. There is actually that option on this camera, but for sharper images and to make sure that you are really focused, it's best to look through the viewfinder. So I never actually turn on the other setting where I can see the image on the screen, unless it's for video. So this little toggle right here next to the viewfinder is basically your eye prescription. So you can actually take pictures through the viewfinder without having to put your glasses on. You can, because I mean, your glasses are going to get in the way if you're looking through the viewfinder. So you just alter this little nozzle here so that you can see perfectly through the viewfinder. So obviously it's set for me. If I was to move it now, my viewfinder would be really blurry. Let's move on here to the display. So this display shows us the white balance, the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, the number of images we have left on the card. It shows me here that we have just one picture at a time. So if I held the button down, it would literally just take one picture, but we can change it so that you can shoot multiple pictures. So if you were to hold the shutter button down, it would go and take lots. This dot right here is showing you that it's on spot focus. And when you're focusing, again, we'll go into more detail later, you want to make sure you focus right on the eye, and the best way to do that is to have the dot. And just down here is the battery. It's showing us how much battery we have left. So when it comes to all of these settings, we will be going into more detail about those, but I will just show you where we can find each one to alter them. So this button right here actually just turns on the display so that you can see it if you're in low light situations, and it just goes off on its own. Here is the ISO button. So you will press that, and now you can see how the ISO setting is on its own. So then you can move it, see, you can move the setting like that. And then I just kind of press the shutter and it all comes back again. So that's how you change the ISO. ISO, shutter speed and aperture is basically what we call the photography triangle. And those are the three settings that we're going to manipulate the most. And they're the ones that control our lighting scenarios and situations. Next we have the AF drive button. So this is where it singles out what we have going on here. So right now it's at the single shoot mode, and then we just turn the dial on the back of the camera and it scrolls through all the options here. Like I said, that is if you were to hold the shutter button down and it was to go and take lots of pictures. The next one is timer. So if you're putting the camera on a tripod and you're taking selfies the professional way, this is how you would do it. There's a 2-second one as well. So I usually just have it on the single image because I'm a boudoir photographer, and usually I'm not taking sports pictures or pictures that require me to hold the button down. Unless I'm taking, for example, let's just say someone's jumping on a trampoline and you want to catch each movement that they're doing, you probably would want to switch it to that. So next over is your white balance. So as you can see, it's now highlighting the Kelvins and then the spot focus. So with the dial at the back of the camera, you can change it through all the white balance scenarios. So that is like tungsten, fluorescent, flash, shade, bright sunshine, cloudy day, that kind of thing. Now I always have it on Kelvins because again, that's another manual mode. You get to manipulate what you want the temperature to be. That's something I'll be going into more detail about in a future video. So we're going to move on to the dial here on top of the camera, and as you can see, it is moving the shutter setting right here. I haven't pressed another button, I literally just went straight into using this top dial. This top dial was also used for the ISO, if you remember. When I pressed the ISO, I also used the dial here to move it. Now there is a setting within the menu that allows you to customize which dial, the one on the top or the one on the back, which dial is used for which of the buttons. I just have it set up this way. Then you have the shutter button at the front, and that is basically what takes your picture. So you will press it halfway down to focus on your subject, and then keep pressing it through until you hear the click. Again, in the settings you can turn the sound off. I like to have it on so I know that it's done its thing. There are 3 buttons here. There's MFN and AFON and the star here. I'm not going to go into that. They're not buttons I use. They're not super important right now. If you want to know about them, I can cover them in future videos. So before I go to the back of the camera, I'm just going to go to the front. So there is a button to the left hand side of the lens. Now I have a 50mm lens on right now. That's not really relevant or super important, but this button is how you release the lens. You press it in, you twist your lens, and you take your lens off. Put it back on, line it up, and then it's in, you twist, and it clicks in place, and that's it. So, to the back of the camera. We've covered the viewfinder, so let's start over here. We have the menu button. Obviously, it scrolls through the menu. So I have it on the star menu, which is a custom menu. So you can actually put things within your custom menu that you want to access on a regular basis. So for example, I have the date and time. If I'm in the middle of a shoot, I've scheduled an hour for it, without, you know, getting my phone out or looking at my watch and, you know, coming across like I'm bored of the shoot. I can pretend I'm just admiring or evaluating the image I just took, but I'm actually looking at the time so that I can keep on track of, you know, what's going on. I also have format card. Again, we'll go into detail about that and why to do that versus deleting images and that kind of thing. So as you can see, using this dial here is how I just move up and down my menu, and then the dial on top of the camera is how I move through to all the different pages of settings on the menu. And you just click the shutter button to come out of the menu. Next to the menu you have info. So right now it tells me what kelvins I'm set up for the white balance, and it tells me what my file name is. As for the file name, you can actually go in and customize that. You could call it Emma's image if you wanted, or whatever. When you click it again, it goes into like a spirit level. So you can actually click on the info and line up your camera so that you know that your camera is dead straight. And you click it again and it comes back to the quick view screen, which is also accessible right here, the button with the Q on it. So we click the info again, it goes off, click the Q, that screen appears back on. And here we can see it's on manual mode. We can see the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. This is the basically the exposure level. You'll be able to see that through the viewfinder as you're looking at your subject or your scenery. Again, in another video I will go into more detail about that. Here you have the setting, is it standard, portrait, landscape, that kind of thing. Black and white I think is in here as well. I just always have mine on standard. The K is Kelvin, so that's your white balance and what temperature you've got it at. The spot metering, so we have various options, and you always want it on spot metering because it is the most defined focus. And here we go again with a single shooting. And scrolling through these, you've got continuous, timer, high speed continuous, low speed continuous. Again, mine's always on the single. As you can see, this screen is very similar to the screen on top. It just has a little bit more functioning to it. And then the one on the end is what format your file is in. And I will press my shutter button for it to go off. As I've mentioned, just below the Q is the back dial, which can be used to scroll through. For example, your aperture is changed merely by using the back dial. So if we go into quick menu, have a look at the aperture right there, use this toggle right here to move to it, and then use this dial right there. Rather than using the quick screen there, we can go back to the top here, and if you have a look right there at the aperture, and we just simply move the dial without clicking any other buttons. This lock button here, I never usually have it on lock. Especially outside, you're going to probably want to change your settings quite frequently. If the sun is going behind a cloud or it suddenly comes out again, you're going to want to be able to manipulate your settings accordingly. If you're shooting in a studio, however, your settings are going to be probably somewhat the same unless you're achieving different looks throughout your shoot. If you are going for the same look throughout, you would probably want to lock it so that the settings don't change. I've put it to lock. Let's look at the screen on top. As you can see, it gives me an L instead of changing the settings. That's telling me that it's locked and I cannot change the settings. So down the left hand side here, as you can see, we have 5 more buttons down the side. The top 2 I'm not going to go into. The one I've never used them. If you want to know how, I will potentially do another video on those down the line. For now, I'm going to start with the playback button because the other 2 buttons around it are usable once we're in the playback button. So you click the playback button and now you can see all your images that you have taken. And again, you use this back dial to scroll through them, or you can use your top dial and it jumps 10 images at a time. With the playback button, you can also use the magnifying glass, and that's to zoom in on what you have, and you can toggle to move your picture over. You can also use the top dial to zoom in even more, and you can reverse it by zooming out so that you can see 9 images on your screen. And that just helps with scrolling through the images a lot faster. Now, still in the playback button, you can see just below it there is a trash can. That is exactly what it's for. It's for deleting your images. So you would select your image and you would press the delete, dial over to erase and click erase, and the image is gone. So while in the playback setting, we're going to also use the info button right here because now it has a different purpose. So as you can see right here, there's the shutter speed and the aperture, and also what number of image you are on. Now if we click the info again, it takes us into more settings. So now we can see the Kelvin the image was taken at, we can see the date and time it was taken at, we can also see the ISO, and we can see the lighting screen, like how much highlight is in the image and how many shadows is in the image. If we click it again, we now come into the RGB screen, how many reds, greens and blues are in the image. And the last button on the back here that I want to cover is the start and stop button. This is used for the display. If you don't want to use the viewfinder to look through to capture your image, you would press the start and stop button and it now gives you a view of what your viewfinder does. It's just not as accurate or as clear when it comes to focusing. But what it's also used for is sliding over to the video camera. So now it's on video mode and we can record videos, and you would simply click the stop and start button to record your video and then press the same button again to finish it. So now turning the camera over so we're on the left hand side of the camera, there is a couple of flaps here, and within the flaps is certain ports. So the top 2 here, the one on the left is for a microphone and the one on the right is for your headphones. Go down, the middle left is for external flashlights if you don't have a transmitter receiver on the top of the camera, you can always plug it in right here. And as for these other three, I have never used these, so again, I'm not going to cover those. They're not entirely important right now. If you want to learn about them, let me know and I will possibly do a video in the future about those. So turning the camera over so it's now upside down. As you can see, my camera is very beat up and it's missing its little rubber pad there. But it has the serial number, which you're going to want to note down for any theft purposes. You should have a record of all your equipment, lenses, lights, all of that. And this port right over here, you click it open and there's the battery. There's a little stopper inside, you just move that to the side and your battery pops out. And the battery has a little arrow on it and it's shaped a certain way. It's like a square going in a square and a circle going in a circle. It'll only go in one way. Follow the arrow, put it in, click it in place, shut it closed, and your camera is ready to go. Now turning the camera over so we're on the right hand side of the camera, we have a card slot. So we slide it out and it just pops open. So mine actually has two slots, one for a CF card and one for an SD card. Again, they're going to be something I cover in future videos as to what the difference is and to why it's a good idea to shoot on both at the same time. So for an SD card, you would you just press it down to put it in and press it down to pop it out. And then with the CF card, it just goes in, and then to take it out you have to press this button here and the CF card pops out. So that's pretty much it in terms of what the camera is all about and what the settings are all about. Now we have these two little loops, I guess you could call them, at each side, and that is where the camera strap goes. Personally, I do not use a camera strap when I'm shooting. I find that it gets in the way. I find that it's uncomfortable. I've had round the neck straps. I've had like one shoulder across the body kind of strap, and I also have a harness. So when I did shoot weddings, I usually put the harness on because then I could have a camera click on the front and then I had a camera click on the side, and I found that that was probably the most comfortable way. But since I shoot boudoir pretty much most of the time, I find that any straps just get in the way. I am confident in my ability of not dropping my camera. My only issue I do have is I'll put it down while I'm helping the client get in a certain pose, and then I temporarily forget where I've put my camera. So that can be an issue, for a few seconds anyways. Wow, you guys, that was so much information. I don't know about you, but even my mind is blown. Like, wow. It's okay though, because this is a video that you can replay and replay and replay and just keep watching it over and over again and take notes. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please comment below and ask me. There is a lot of technical aspects when it comes to photography and learning the camera, and it can be super daunting. It certainly was daunting for me when I first started, but you know what? We all start somewhere. We're all beginners once upon a time, myself included, and it's just always nice to have that little bit of help to move you along just a little bit faster. Photography is also very creative, so as much as this is a technical tutorial, I don't try to get too hung up on the technical details of what a camera can do. I try to let my creativity flow more so and not let the technical aspects get in the way. So I encourage you to just have fun with it, get creative, you know, make some notes from this video and then just play around with it. I think, I don't know about you, but the best way for me to learn is to get hands-on and to start messing around with the settings. At the end of the day, if you take a picture and you can't see anything but white, obviously it's overexposed, but it doesn't matter. Delete it and start again. It's a learning curve and it's going to be a fun one. So just remember, I am here with you on your journey. So please comment below, ask ask me anything you want and I will be happy to help. If you found this video somewhat valuable or helpful or just, I don't know, enjoyable, put the thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That helps YouTube and the algorithms know that this video was awesome, and you know it was, and there's going to be more of where this came from. I really want to help you to, you know, get to know the ins and outs of your camera, so I am here for you. So subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos, and yeah, I will see you next Friday.
Like that?
Sure. It's not exactly how I did it, but...
No, but I'm not you. I'm not you, and that was my way.
Okay, fair enough. Cool.
Scratchy, scratchy.